Yo, this is Steve Bloom, and you're watching Moana Nui Podcast. We'll be starting soon. Don't go anywhere.
Oh, hello there. And welcome to a very special episode of the Moana Nui Podcast. I am your host, Cece the Geek, or your guest host, Cece the Geek. And I want to give a huge shout out to Dana and Moana of the Moana Nui Podcast for having me on the show and for trusting me with this very special topic, very important topic with a very special guest. So without further ado, it is my honor and privilege to introduce Ms. Shae Reigns, Master of Social Work.
Hi,
Welcome. Thank you for being here. So I just want to dive right in. First, I want to give you a chance to formally introduce yourself. And I love opening with the question, who are you and what is your passion?
Oh, girl. We need a whole new episode. No.
I know.
My name is Shae. Shae Reigns. Some of you might know me as Rain Shae, depending on where you met me. And I am a licensed social worker, master of social work. I am a clinical social worker. I am a therapist. I provide mental health professional consultations. And I am here because I am passionate about helping people in all kinds of different ways. And Dana and Moana gave me this opportunity to be able to have a platform where my passions could basically coincide with theirs, whereby I could provide this kind of assistance, this kind of encouragement, this kind of support to Black nerds and geeks and you know, us. So I wanted to be able to do that. So
nice.
Yeah.
Nice. I love that. And I think the community could certainly use, some therapy and some healing, if you will. Any community, but certainly the nerd community is no exception. So of course we're here to talk about narcissism. And this is going to be a 2-part episode, or at least 2 parts. So if I want to start out with what exactly is narcissism, because I think a lot of times the meaning gets construed or misused. So can you give us your expert definition of narcissism?
So let me start by saying we're all a little bit narcissistic, right? You can look at and as a matter of fact, it's one of those things that we did while we were, when we're learning about narcissism, we look at the actual clinical definition and what it quote unquote takes to be a narcissist. And everybody's always like, is that me?
Right.
Oh man. But everybody has a moment or two where they're going to fit some of those criteria. And I'm not going to go down the list of all the clinical parts of the criteria, and just understand that at any moment in time, you might find yourself being a little narcissistic, but that doesn't mean that you are a narcissist. Also, you're going to find narcissistic tendencies in other people. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're a narcissist. You'll see your coworker who is maybe constantly attention seeking or something to that effect and be like, oh, they're a narcissist. Well, for conversational purposes, sure, we can say that.
Right.
But is that something necessarily that you're going to have them try to go to therapy for? No.
Right.
It just means that they're probably having a moment. A good hint is every child is a narcissist. I don't care how considerate and adorable and wonderful your kid is, they're a narcissist. As a matter of fact, it's good that they're a narcissist, and we hope that they stay a narcissist until they're no longer a child. Because really, when it comes down to it, a kid doesn't have or shouldn't have anyone but themselves to be worried about. Okay, if your kid has to worry too much about other people and they're not allowed to actually be a narcissist while they're a kid, they're not going to grow out of it. Okay, so that's a good starting point, I think, is your kid should be a narcissist until.
Right. Facts. I love
it. Yeah, so we start there, and we can go a little bit more in depth, but I just want to make it clear that most of us get it wrong. So do not be alarmed. If you think this song is about you, it's not. Because another great way to know if you're a narcissist or not is if you can actually think, oh man, am I a narcissist? Because a narcissist is incapable of actually recognizing it in themselves.
So would you say that like conviction is kind of a defining factor?
What do you mean?
In the sense of like introspection.
Yeah, that's not going to happen. that's like one of the things, like you would think that all they would do would be think about themselves, think about their own thoughts, right?
Right.
And that's how we understand narcissism to work, at least in layman terms, is, oh, they're just going to be really self-centered. No, most of them are completely oblivious to their own stuff. Just no idea whatsoever. So yeah, no, there's no introspection. There's no true self-awareness. It's a lot of defining themselves based on the things that make them insecure, which gets to also the definition still. It's actually just a very intense form of insecurity.
Got you.
So that's also why it is that we often get it wrong, because we look at these people and we assume, oh, they're just so conceited, or, oh, they're so vain. They must be in our, nope. More often than not, the majority of, I'm going to say, just for the sake of conversation, 99.9999999% of all narcissists are intensely insecure. And that is one of the things that really makes it that much more difficult for people to understand the narcissist, because it's like, if you're talking to someone who is a narcissist, they're going to seem face value on the shallow level, completely self-aware, and they're probably going to be constantly saying something to the effect of them being great, and the people who they're associated with being great, right? Everything's awesome. I'm awesome. Everything I do is awesome, right? But that's because it's kind of the opposite of doth they protest too much. It's more like doth they not protest at all, ever, right? So that's going to be kind of the experience, so to speak, on the internal side.
I see. So you kind of started to tap into my next question, but perhaps you can elaborate a little bit further on what are some traits, like what is narcissism and what is it not, essentially? What are traits or symptoms of narcissism that are prominent, that are most prominent? Because I'm sure there are many.
Well, there are different kinds of narcissists, right? We have the grandiose narcissists, who's the kind that we're most familiar with. So this is the kind of person that seems to have really high self-esteem. They're going to think of things like they're entitled to everything. They're going to be really overconfident, like not just I got this, but I got this. You can't possibly have this because I got this so much. That kind of overconfidence.
Gotcha.
They're going to be the over controlling.
Gotcha.
Think Trump.
Ooh. Okay.
For those of you who are in love with that man, more power to you. But that is the textbook picture of narcissism.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Then we're gonna have like the malignant narcissist. Okay. So the malignant narcissist is going to be constantly paranoid. Everybody's always going to be out to get them.
Okay.
Nobody, they're great, but nobody is ever going to acknowledge their greatness because of how great they are.
Gotcha.
That kind of where their narcissism actually is manifested completely negatively.
Gotcha.
Okay. And that one is one of those that, especially in classifying it, that's when everybody's just like,
right,
because everybody's had that moment of, man, people just don't know how great I am.
Yeah,
if only you understood, right? Yeah. Everybody's had that moment,
right?
But do we stay in it? Do we bask in it? Do we do absolutely nothing with our lives because of how great we think we are, but nobody's going to acknowledge it? Like, exactly how does it manifest? How extreme does it go? And that's where the that boundary is. So, you're going to be constantly looking for the admiration, and even when you get it, it's not going to count for anything.
Gotcha.
And then, of course, we have the vulnerable narcissist, where they are the obviously insecure narcissistic personality, where everything is shameful, everything is wrong. They'll never be good enough because of how whatever. That there's a lot of self-deprecation in their language, right? And the problem with this is it is because there's a part of their mind, yes, that agrees with this, but really it's because they're just constantly looking for someone for that external validation.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Not to say that any of the others aren't looking for the external validation,
right?
But this is, I'm going to call it more like a viral need. Like think of what like a virus requires to multiply, right? Like that's all it exists on. So it's just going to be constantly looking for that. Just, it's kind of like the invitation or begging for a compliment, but by saying, oh, I'm just so ugly, and waiting for someone else to say, no, you're not.
Yeah.
That.
Gotcha.
So that's one of the, see?
You're like,
you just somebody who does that.
Perspective. Yeah. And then how you differentiate, because there's a lot of overlap. At least I feel like there's overlap between malignant and vulnerable.
There's going to be overlap for all of them because, like I said, overall or under all, at its foundation, right? At its foundation, it's all about being insecure.
Got it.
Sorry.
What is? I don't know. Cece taking notes. Look, I'm not writing a hit. I do that on my own time, though. But I'm just thinking that's so important because I think, like you said, a lot of people misconstrue that insecurity is the common denominator of narcissistic behavior or any like personality disorders that are associated with it. I'm trying to see if we have any questions from the audience. I'm trying to keep up with y'all, okay? Well, we appreciate your comments. Definitely feel free to chime in. I want to integrate your questions as best as I can. But the next question I wanted to ask you is, what's the difference between narcissism and vanity? Is it just a matter of extremes, or how does that work?
Well, from a clinical perspective, the major difference with any personality disorder is whether or not it causes a difficulty to live life.
Gotcha.
Right? So that's I use the example of the broken leg or the leg that falls off pretty often, right? You know that you have a problem if your leg falls off, right? Your leg has fallen off.
Right.
You're not going to be able to walk properly. Your life is going to be severely curtailed because your leg just fell off.
Yeah.
What are you supposed to do with that?
Right. Right.
So with any personality disorder, with any mental situation in general, the defining factor between whether it's a disorder or if it's just a momentary thing is if it is actually causing an interruption in your life. So it's the difference between your leg falling off and your leg just having a momentary ache. It's like, oh, that hurt. Keep it moving. You don't have a disorder. Your leg was hurt for half a second. On the other hand, your leg falls off. That's a problem.
Right.
So you have a moment where you're feeling insecure. That's okay. You don't have a disorder. You were feeling insecure for a moment.
Right.
On the other hand, if it is causing a disruption in your life, like I said, especially with the malignant narcissist who often will not make moves in life because they don't get the validation that they are so sure that they deserve, right? Or they don't get the kind of validation or the validation from the people or whatever it is that they're looking for because of that. So they don't actually do anything, right? That's one of those things where it's, you can't move forward in life because of your narcissism.
Right.
Or you're moving forward, but there are elements of your life that do not. So especially with the grandiose narcissist, you're thinking, because anybody would say, well, how is grandiose narcissism a problem? If we're talking about Trump, the man got to be president of the United States of America, right?
Right.
But if you look at his personal relationships, as stated by our friend here, JD,
right,
his wives don't even love him.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
His interpersonal relationships suffer greatly.
Yeah.
Right? His kids might still be there, but why?
Right.
And I'll leave that just as an open question. You understand what I'm saying? So like it's not, he's on wife, I don't know, like 57 or something. Not a one of his interpersonal relationships, the ones that are required, so to speak, for human growth, are actually successful, so to speak, you know, because of what he requires in order for his own grandiose narcissism to be sustained. So that's kind of the line. So if you're here, you're teetering over, you're looking over the line, but you're not falling over where it's completely stopping you from properly getting to achieve things in your life or achieving what it is that you're looking for in life, then yes, then it's a problem. Then you have a personality disorder. In this case, narcissism.
Okay. I'm loving this conversation. Yay. I think that you're providing a lot of, deeper perspective that folks haven't really talked, because we don't really talk about mental health at all, let alone specific personality disorders or behavioral disorders, things like that. So my next question for you is, have you personally, without, doing anything that would jeopardize your job, have you personally ever dealt with a client or just someone that you know personally who has narcissistic personality disorder? And if so, how did it affect you and how did you navigate that situation?
I will talk about my personal life because that whole not messing with my license. So my personal life, Like many people, I have dealt with many narcissists, or at least people with narcissistic personality traits that are a little bit more intense than others. And I can speak to one in particular that I did not handle well. Right? I did not handle it well, or rather, I did not handle it professionally. I handled it perfectly fine as just a regular old person. But if I was talking to me as my therapist self, I'd be like, what did you expect to get out of that?
Right.
So, like I said before, a narcissist is incapable of recognizing their narcissism. And so, professionally speaking, if someone is sitting in front of you and they're talking and you recognize this is a narcissist, actually saying, hey, you're a narcissist, right? Is not the thing to do.
Right.
And so in my personal life, that is exactly what I did. I said, hey, you're a narcissist, right? And the only way you're going to be happy in a relationship is if you're with a codependent personality. Deuces. And that's basically and that's how I basically left the conversation and that relationship. And what's really special about this conversation is technically I know that he would not think that this conversation is about him, even if he was watching, except for the part of how specific it was to, I'm pretty sure I literally said deuces at the end.
Right.
So yeah, but that was what I did, and I'm allowed to be a human, and I'm allowed to make mistakes, and although my human side strongly is perfectly fine with that as not a mistake, it was just a thing that I felt the need to do at the moment. And hopefully he decided to actually take heed to the fact that I'm a mental health professional and that I might be right. And so maybe he actually went and got him some therapy to start working on that so that he can find happiness with someone who does not have a codependent personality disorder. Because that's a thing.
Yeah. And can you talk a little bit about codependency?
Oh, sure. Think kind of the opposite of a narcissist, except for the insecurity. So a codependent personality is going to be someone who
I feel, look, I'm like, professionally, I don't condone it, but I understand it, right? I'm sorry, continue.
So the whole thing is that with codependent personalities, they're going to be a lot more accepting. And by the way, statistically speaking, most people with codependent personality disorder were raised by narcissists, which is how they ended up being codependent.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they are kind of hardwired to be able to provide the validation that a narcissist requires. And so they are going to, a lot of times, just kind of coexist with the person, whether they're being abused or not, but not feeling like they're okay if they're not able to provide that validation. And so that's just what they're going to do. Right. And they're going to stay in the relationship because they're going to think that they're the one who's failing, or that they're the one who's wrong, or that there's something wrong with them. And mental health check, Shae says, there's nothing wrong with any of these people. Something happened to them that caused this. And it's really important to emphasize that there's nothing wrong with these people, whether not so professional Shae had a moment with one or not. There's nothing wrong with these people. It's just that something happened to them at some point to send the message that this is how they needed to be. And notice it's not how they wanted to be. It's how they needed to be. And so they become that way. not by choice. It is something that is quote unquote done to them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So what would you say are the common causes of narcissism, if you will? You kind of tapped into that.
I don't even know if I can call it common.
Mm-hmm.
The human mind is just so complex.
Mm-hmm.
The way the psyche works is a lot like trying to define everything in the ocean and then compare it to space.
Right. Right.
Okay. There's an infinite level of possibilities, right? So let's say, for example, we have a set of twins.
Mm-hmm.
A set of twins, for the most part, is not going to be literally born at the same moment in time.
Mm-hmm.
And thus, because of that, they're not going to have exactly the same experiences.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say, for the example, that by some strange miracle, they were born 2 seconds apart, not minutes, because most of them are born minutes apart, but seconds apart, right?
Right.
Even in something that brief, it could have been that the AC kicked on between second 1 and second 2. So the second one got that extra blast of cold air when they were coming out that gave them a more harsh introduction into the world that caused them to interpret their experiences differently. Okay? It can be something that simple that can differentiate one person from the next in terms of how they interpret their relationship with the world. And I'm talking about twins, those milliseconds, those. Yes, I did say there's nothing wrong with these people. Something happened.
So don't feel that way. I feel you, Moana. I feel that.
It doesn't feel that way. And this is why we also call those personality disorders, right?
Mm-hmm.
You'd be surprised on some of the things that how we classify personality disorders. Because from my perspective, the underlying and foundational element in under all personality disorders is that they are inconvenient for the rest of us. Pick any personality disorder, and the reason why it's a personality disorder is because how it manifests itself is inconvenient for the rest of society. It's okay.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. No, you good. I like the twin thing too. So, and that actually brings me back to, I was going to ask, so you kind of believe in the butterfly effect in that sense, that like any small thing.
Well, when it comes to how it is that we interpret our relationship in the world, it can be that simple. Sometimes not necessarily simple, I guess. The butterfly effect is not a simple concept, but it can be those tiny things that make huge differences.
Yeah.
Which is what the butterfly effect is all about. It's about the flapping of one butterfly's wings causing a tsunami somewhere else. It can be something that simple that we think is simple. AC blowing causes cold. The baby experiences a cold awakening where the first baby maybe instantly was held and cared for. Instead, the second one got that cold breeze. The nurse recognized the cold breeze. So instead of holding and comforting, she put the baby down so she could get a blanket. And in those moments, that first moments being tender and loving to being still tender and loving, but a completely different form of it.
Right. Okay.
And it's hard to get into the minutia of it because, I've had these conversations with folks in session, and it's just like, wait, so I got to imagine trying to have this conversation actually with a pregnant woman.
Yeah.
The look of horror on her face of all of the different things that she could possibly do.
Yeah.
And then having to reel her back in because it's like, wait. I'm just giving you that as an example. You're doing fine.
Right.
You're doing fine.
You mean to tell me if I eat seafood?
If I breathe into my baby's face with bad breath, they could have a bad life forever. No. Wait, that's not exactly what I'm saying. But it can be these little tiny things that create these situations, and you never know which moment it is. So the best thing that we can do for a human being is to do our absolute best, as we tend to make every moment of each other's experiences as pleasant as possible. Hashtag your 50%.
I love that.
Because that's what it's all about. It's about making your 50% of the interaction as pleasant as possible, both for you and the other person. You know, that's at least where my, you know, do more, require better, 50%, so forth and so on, all that stuff that I say comes from, because when it comes down to it, you never know which interaction is going to be the one that makes a difference for someone. You know, you can say the same thing a quadrillion times and it be that quadrillion and one where it finally is like, oh, and it's because you said it at the moment where they were thinking the right set of thoughts and the temperature was just right and the sun was shining and the cow jumped over the moon and poof, now they get it.
Right.
You know, it's just, you never know when it would be the time that the person actually gets it. And that's one of those things, you know, I could get extra on all of my passions, right? On all of my soapboxes. But when it comes down to it, we are all here to experience this world, to experience this life, both for ourselves and for each other. And if by my explaining what narcissism is and how it can affect each other and how it can come about, can be that one moment where it just so happens that someone who is experiencing narcissism, whether they themselves are the narcissist or they are being abused by one, depending on how you choose to define it, if this moment of understanding that there's nothing wrong with these people and something had to happen to them, then it gives you the opportunity to say, okay, well, this is someone who I care enough about to ask the questions for. Or I care enough about me to recognize this is not something I can fix. Perhaps I should just give them some mental health professional's card and walk on. I'm hoping that is how this plays out. The narcissist recognizes by some strange miracle, hey, that might be me. Or, hey, I'm not a narcissist, but I could get some help for dealing with the one that I'm living with. So whether you are a narcissist or whether you are the codependent person who is in need of validation and salvation, hi, there's nothing wrong with you. And if you need more proof of that, you're listening to this right now. Congratulations.
I know that's right.
Help.
I know that's right. So you kind of answered my question already, but how does one treat narcissism or codependency outside of therapy? What are some, well, I guess I know therapy would be an essential element. I don't know what else you would do. But elaborate a little more, and have you ever witnessed someone who was absolved of it or kind of reformed, if you will?
The answer to the last question is no.
Okay.
The answer to the first question is I do not, at least according to what the textbooks say, I do not believe it is possible for a narcissist to self-treat such that they would actually be absolved of it just naturally, because their own thought processes would talk them back into the narcissism. So that it's kind of just the progression of that kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah. So no. I don't. I'm not a fan of absolute statements, except for that no one ever, anywhere, ever got anywhere alone. It's the only absolute statement that I am comfortable making, period. Because that is the absolute 100% of the time truth.
You're not wrong. Look, what she? Well, what the hell? I know, Moana. We gotta. I know it's gonna be.
I apologize. I don't like having that's. I am a fan of the hard to swallow pill, but that one also tastes like battery acid. Yes, this is why we need a part 2.
How do you? Oh yeah, good question, Moana. And I was gonna ask, what do you recommend? Any resources? So, like, of course, that folks can reach out to you personally. I would presume you have some availability.
I am not a specialist. Let me reel that in real quick, okay? I am not a specialist. Narcissistic personality disorder requires specialized care.
Okay.
And that is not just me saying that. When we learned about it in school, they tell us, or at least 3 of my professors told us, don't even try until you get the specialized training. Because then basically the ethical argument is, do you treat the narcissist indefinitely? Because that's how that would go. You would be in treatment for them indefinitely, always and forever. Because they would not be truly able to acknowledge it, and their own thought processes will constantly take them back to square one.
Got you.
And so it requires someone who is specially trained and specially all of that. I don't even know what it would be, what the specialization is called. I would just know that it's not mine.
That's the assignment, right?
It's not mine. Even in my personal life, I handle it horribly. So
I mean, hey, like you said, we're all human. So
that's right. So so no, it's not just any therapist who would necessarily be able to treat that. We can all certainly try and make our best efforts, and there might be some random miracle kind of situation, and I shouldn't say miracle, but it might be some kind of a random situation where in treating something else, because there are comorbidities that come with narcissism, depression and so forth and so on, that through treating that, the narcissism can be treated. Okay. But to specifically send someone to treatment for narcissism, first of all, you're not getting a narcissism to go in for treatment for their narcissism, because they won't be able to acknowledge they have it.
Right.
So, yeah, that's just not gonna happen.
So you gotta kind of be like, it's like with a pet, and you're putting the medicine in the treat, and then that's how you get them to eat. I hate to use an analogy, but so if we deal with one, we feel like we're.
No, it is not you. And on the plus side, if you actually feel like you're banging your head against the wall, that also means that you're not a codependent person. So congratulations.
That's growth.
Or you might have some codependency, but you don't have the personality disorder. So there's that. But, no, the best way to help someone who, and this is my professional opinion.
Okay.
Someone else can potentially tell you something else. from my personal opinion, just from my experiences with narcissists, plural, and in living life, the best way to help the narcissist in your life is to help yourself. Put your mask on first, as they say on the airplane. Sticking around is only going to be abusive to you, especially if you are in an intimate kind of relationship with this person. You're going to just find yourself being lost in that relationship because you are 99.999999999.9% not going to get what you need out of that relationship. Your entire relationship will be about providing them with what they need. And you might get something sort of kind of that you need, but it's going to come at the cost of something else that you need.
Right. That's real. I'm sorry. Okay.
It's okay. The best way to help a narcissist is to help yourself first. Get you some therapy because you probably need it. Because dealing with narcissists is hard.
Yeah.
If you were raised by a narcissist, it's going to be that much more difficult. Like I said, check the statistics. The greater majority of all people with a codependent personalities are often raised by narcissists. So get you some therapy. Get you lots of therapy. Doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you. It means that there's something wrong that happened to you. And when something wrong happens to us, what it just means is that we need to help to get some help to cope with what that was. Right. Shoving it under a rug, putting it on the back burner, sticking our heads in the sand, all of those things that we tend to do when it comes to things that are going on with us. Don't do that. If your thought process is, oh, tomorrow is always coming. Today was yesterday's tomorrow, but it's no longer tomorrow today. Today it's today. So tomorrow will always come. Tomorrow will always be there. It's always going to be an endless list of tomorrows. Don't wait until tomorrow. Call somebody today.
I hope you would agree. Well, I think you would agree with me that I also think that there doesn't necessarily have to be a disorder or anything to that extent for you to have to go to therapy. Sometimes it's just nice to have that option. And, you know, it helps you navigate work. It helps you navigate school and just life and family and a lot of different things that, you know, we quite frankly aren't really taught in school or really culture to talk about growing up. So
I like to call myself, when I'm talking to certain people, I like to call myself a transition specialist. Exactly. Go ahead, look at y'all listening.
I know that's right. Yes.
Did you wake up today? It's a good day for therapy. Are you breathing? You might need some therapy. It does not require.
Just not for narcissism.
Yes, that part. You want to talk to me about your depression, your anxiety, your bipolar disorder, your difficulties at work. Is the sunshine just not hitting it right? You can't figure out why is it that the dust on your bedpost is annoying you just a little bit too much. We'll talk about it. You're a narcissist and you recognize it. First of all, you're a unicorn. Congratulations. But I can't.
Nitro crypto.
Well, listen, whatever it is that you need to help you figure out that you need therapy, I'm all for it. Are you watching this today? You need therapy. Whatever it is, or you're listening, because some people listen to podcasts. If you're listening to this today, you need therapy. I think I was actually having a conversation with my mom a couple weeks ago. And she actually said it, and I was just like, look at you listening and learning after a quadrillion years. Yeah, it's so important because eventually we all have to recognize that today is a good day for therapy. And if we don't want to call it therapy, get you a consult. You don't want to call it a consult, get you a transition specialist, right? Having nothing to do with your gender identity. Just if you are walking and breathing and living through this life, get a therapist because we can help you do that. Young, old. Sometimes I feel like we should come out the womb and have a therapist assigned to us, just in case. Like, just in case they also come out and they can talk.
That would be really nice, wouldn't it?
Yep.
Imagine a
You're
world.
your Pampers and a therapist.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Right? Imagine a world where everyone has access to mental health care. It's crazy.
Where they do that at?
Crazy, right? Oh my gosh. Okay, I had another question for you.
Ask away.
What was it? Watching Crystal. Oh, so yes, now I remember. So you said earlier that you really have a passion for helping people, and particularly need to be part of the benefits you get once you're born. Let's start right. Exactly, Dana. But you said earlier that particularly you are an advocate for Black people, and particularly Black nerds, blurs, for having therapy in their lives, so, or consult, or whatever the case may be. And why do you think that's so important?
I'm not judging you. This is a judgment-free zone. Okay. I want to rewind because I want to be clear. In my personal life, I can say, yes, I have a passion for helping people who look like me and people who have similar interests as mine, because I am also a Black nerd. In my personal life, I would say that. As a professional, I would not.
Okay.
Because my professional soapbox requires me to also acknowledge that as people walking this earth and interacting with each other, helping everyone also helps us. And I cannot claim to want to help us and then, at least from my perspective, claim to want to help us and then not help everyone else. Because the random racist redneck who only watches football and, I don't know, the Bounty Hunter show with that other racist dude, right? Whatever. Like, if that's all they watch, so definitely not a nerd, definitely not Black, and they show up in my office or they show up where I work and they say, hey, I need help. And I'm like, no. And then they get to go on living life saying, see, I asked one of them N-words for help and they said no, because they're racist too, with reverse racism. See, now I done messed it up for all of us. And that's not to say that we're supposed to be representative of all of us or anything like that.
Right.
But when it comes down to it, if a human being says, I need help, and I am a person who is in a position to help,
right,
then I must.
Right.
So professionally speaking, I would not say I'm specific to us because I know what that could mean. I will help anybody, or at least make my best effort to help anybody who comes to me. When I am walking the halls where I work, in the hospital where I work, I have encountered racists who clearly are just like, I want no parts of all that darkness. And I'm like, cool, but you look lost. Are you absolutely sure, Mr. Confederate flag wearing swastika tattoo having, sir, are
Right.
you sure you don't want me to at least point you in the right direction?
Mm-hmm.
And then I say, it's that way, by the way. And I get on the elevator and I move on with my day. Because my job, regardless of anything, is to help.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in a helping profession.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm not specific professionally. In my personal life, of course, would I want to just be able to sit in my office and be blackety black all the time?
Mm-hmm.
But I know that's not necessarily going to always help.
Right.
Because yes, we need mental health care. We need awareness that praying the sad away isn't necessarily a thing, right? We need someone to say, you know what? Some medication might help you get through today.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But we also need someone for random petty mayonnaise Karen to say, hey, I'm here. I'll listen and let me see how I can help you. Because Karens need help. So much help. Too.
Right.
Of all different kinds, if for no other reason than to help them be more aware of who they are and why they are the way they are.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed.
And for all the Karens who might be watching today, if you're breathing, please get some help. Karen.
Right. Exactly. There's
Karen,
no phrase that anyone is above.
Susan. Any one of those names.
Right.
Please. You too need help.
Yeah. I love that perspective because it's like we're not obligated to do that work, right? As Black people or Indigenous people of color, we're not obligated to do that. But that work is so important, right? No matter who's doing it, quite frankly. So I'm glad that you named that because it's like, what good is it for all of us to get the therapy if we're dealing with a world full of people who aren't getting it? So I appreciate that. I really do. Well, how much time we got? I'm like, because I want to make sure. Oh, Lord, we got 4 minutes. Okay, let's give you a chance to shout out your socials and how can people follow you, find you.
I'm terrible at that. I'm so glad it's on the crawl.
Or like any last words of wisdom you want to bestow?
I don't know. Actually, I do. Let me not lie to the folks because I like to be honest. I was having a conversation this morning. This is completely off topic, so sorry. Not sorry. And your decisions make a difference. The decision to watch this show today isn't necessarily just about giving us the extra click. It can also make the difference between you now knowing something and having the ability to share an idea or a thought or a conversation with someone else who actually needed it if you didn't. Don't take that for granted. It's not necessarily your responsibility, but if you have the opportunity, why not use it? Make your decisions and your 50% count. That would be my final thought.
I love that. Very well said. Very well said. I'm so grateful to have shared this hour with you. And like you said, I don't think anything happens by accident or by coincidence. So I receive all of that. And I just am so grateful to Moana and Dana for this opportunity. Thank you so much. Ms. Shae, licensed master of social work. Okay. But listen, we're going to give you credit where the credit is due now. But
and now I am licensed in 2 states. So
yes, okay. We worldwide now. Definitely have to have Shae. Okay, right. We need a panel. And actually, my stepmom is a counselor as well. She is a counselor specialist for the Board of Education in Prince George's County. So I would love to introduce you to her. Yeah.
I love networking.
Yay, cool.
Yes, part 2 coming in 2 weeks. Please have your questions ready.
Yay.
I am so looking forward to this. This is not my specialty, but apparently these days we have a lot of need in the community for this conversation. Mm-hmm. And I think it's really important that we recognize that there's nothing wrong with these people.
Right.
There's just something that happened to them.
Yeah. Love that. All right. Well, we got some unpacking to do. I appreciate you, Miss Reigns. You've been wonderful. Once again, thank you, Moana and Dana, for everything and for this opportunity, this platform. And we'll see you guys soon. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Do more, require better.
I know that's right.
So many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can't keep history on the shelf. If they won't tell it, we will.
If this the land of the free, it was a freedom then. When they annexed Hawaii and called it Cedar Lands, without any type of payment and no signing off. Called themselves a republic in 1894. 1.2 million acres overtaken from the native Hawaiians. When they resisted, the West retaliated in violence and erasure. The Hawaiian language is banned as part of colonialism's plan to expand, yeah.
Stuck between a rock and a hard place. Multiple bombings of Kaho'olawe. As a part of their ongoing war with Asia, used it as a place for target practice. No consent or compensation. Colonizers call for annexation. No regard for all the locals. School will never let you know. So many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will. Too many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will. We will.
So if we put Hawaii into perspective, well, Black and Asian history is interconnected. Considering the fight with the Pacific, then of course, versus Asia, they was treated as a middleman for war, but didn't let the Western colorism run its course, cause dark skin was a sign of dignity to core. The land was taken in the name of capitalism, when prior to it was an actual kingdom. Clap back at the system.
Stuck between a rock and a hard place. Multiple bombings of Kaho'olawe. As a part of their ongoing war with Asia, used it as a place for target practice. No consent or compensation. Colonizers call for annexation. No regard for all the locals. School will never let you know. So many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will. Too many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will. So many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will. Too many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will. We will.
I'm Steve Bloom. I've been a voice actor for more than 30 years, playing characters like Wolverine, Starscream, Tank Dempsey from Call of Duty.
With Bloomfox Studios, I've learned so much about myself.
Learning to breathe, to no fear, to getting ugly in front of the mic.
One of the biggest changes I've noticed, at least for me, is how much my confidence level has gone up.
Done an Eastern European video game, an e-commerce commercial, a documentary. If you're thinking about getting into voiceover, just do it. Jump in.